What's up, y'all? It's Celeste. I've been back on tea now for 5.5 months, which means that I've been on tea for a total of 15 months, or 1 year and 3 months. But that's over actually as of today, exactly a 3-year period. It was 3 years ago today that I had my first tea shot. So as you can tell by those numbers, I haven't been on tea consistently. I haven't been on tea this whole time. I've been on and off several times. And if you want to know the whole, up and down, the whole progression of all that, you can look at the playlist that I'm going to post up there, and I never can remember which side it's on. I don't know. It's up there somewhere. As with anybody's hormone update, this is my personal experience. This is what I've experienced being on tea. This isn't necessarily applied to everybody, but it's just to give you some idea of what could happen if you are on tea for whatever length of time. And the other thing to keep in mind also with me is that my dosage has not been consistent either. I've been on mostly what would be usually considered a low dose, but kind of going up and down a little bit. I've been on as high as 100 milligrams a week and as low as 20 milligrams a week. During this 5.5 month period, I've been averaging about 50 milligrams a week, and I just upped it a little bit a few weeks ago, so now I'm at around 70-ish. I did just have blood work done because I'm going to be having a follow-up in a week or so, and according to that, my levels were, I should have written it down, but it was around 600, I think, which is right in the middle of the cis male reference range of testosterone. So I'm definitely in within the male range at this point. I'm not even really at the low end of it. So just keep all that in mind when I talk about all the changes that I've had. So as for those changes, I'll talk about voice first. I have personally noticed a difference in my voice in the way that it sounds to me as well as the way it feels to me in my speaking voice. I have noticed a bit of a shift in my singing voice as well, over the time that I've been going to my voice teacher. We've been talking about it, and it has shifted down a little bit. It's not necessarily that my entire range has shifted that much. It's maybe just 1 or 2 notes lower than I was able to sing toward the beginning of the time that I started seeing him. And I don't think I've really lost any notes necessarily at the top, but the kind of areas of my voice where there's chest voice and head voice and your break or passaggio, that has shifted down a little bit, just slightly, but noticeably enough that we've talked about it in my voice lessons. And then again, as far as my speaking voice, it's just been kind of a subjective thing for how it sounds to me and how it feels to me. Anyway, here is my comparison. Today is June 29th, 2019, and this is my voice about 6.5 months off tea. Today is March 14th, 2020, and this is my voice 1 year and 3 months on tea. So the other change that I have definitely noticed is hair, and I'll go ahead and talk about facial hair first. In my 9-month off tea video, I did a comparison of when I was on tea and then after being off of it for a long time. And in that I talked about that it had thinned out quite a bit, that it grew a lot slower, and that was true. I'm pretty sure in that, I think I might have been wrong in the video sample that I had of when I was on tea, or actually I had been off tea for a month at that time. I said that was after 1 day, and I'm not sure if that really was 1 day. It might have been 2 days or maybe even 3 days. It definitely was a shorter period of time than the sample that I had from being off tea, where it was a lot thinner and a lot less noticeable. So there definitely was a pretty significant difference, very noticeable to me as far as how long I could go without shaving, and even how dark or thick it got after not shaving for a long time. But I'm not sure that I was really correct when I said it was 1 day. I can't swear to that. But I know for sure that this video I'm about to show you is me after not shaving for 1 day. I shaved yesterday morning, and then I took this video this morning before shaving again. So this is how much it grows at this point overnight. And it's not a lot. It's still very short. It doesn't cover my whole face, but you can kind of see how dark it is compared to my skin. and how it does grow pretty quickly in a lot of different areas of my face. Still, like my jawline, my chin, I don't know, just like certain patches on my face seem to grow a lot faster. So those areas are especially noticeable after a day. And again, I know it's not like a lot, but it's definitely increasing as I'm on T for longer. When I was off T for 9 months, certain areas of my body, like my legs, it really kind of thinned and lightened a lot so that it wasn't as dark or thick. In certain areas, like the bottoms of my legs stayed fairly dark and thick, but as you went up my leg, it was like lighter, and like there was still more hair there than there had been previously, but it was very light, and I don't know, it just wasn't as coarse or dark looking as it was when I was on T. Now that I've been back on T, it has kind of gone back to how it was before. So now it is thicker, it is growing more. I have definitely gained some hair this time being on T. It's still not like super dark or thick in most places other than the bottoms of my legs, like my shins and that area. And then definitely on my face, it's dark and thick. But most of the other places that I've had hair growth, it's still been fairly light. It's not like transparent, but it's like a light brown kind of, like, I don't know if you can even see like on my arms. A lot of this is transparent, but it's thicker, and by thicker, I'm talking about the distribution of hairs, not necessarily the hairs themselves. Those on my arms, I don't think are really different. On my legs and my face, they definitely are. They're like coarser. But just as far as like the amount of coverage of hair that I have on my arms is a lot more, but it's still very light. It's a little bit more brownish than transparent, but it's still like a light brown. And it's also kind of spread a lot more. So when I was off T, I still had hair going up like past my knee and like up my thigh, but like I said, it was very light and a lot thinner. But now it's kind of progressively going up more. So it's actually up like my entire thigh, like all the way up my hips, and also quite a bit more on my butt. I just noticed that the other day. So that's definitely happened. So it's definitely growing a lot more. And it's kind of picked back up on my torso as well, especially this area, like right under my belly button, is the darkest and like the longest. But then going up my chest, there's definitely more hair on my chest than there was before. It's still very light and thin for the most part, but there are a few darker, longer hairs that have kind of sprouted up. And I'm definitely keeping an eye on this area because this is probably the primary, like my whole torso, my front and back, is where I most don't want to get a lot of hair. So definitely keeping an eye on that, but it's inevitable if I stay on T forever, I think, based on my family. So that's kind of the main reason I'm going really slow with everything and monitoring everything as much as I can. And just to make it easier to compare, here are some side-by-sides of what my hair growth looked like when I was 9 months off T and now at 5.5 months back on T. And it seems like most of the time when I post these videos and I talk about not wanting to have facial or body hair, I have people comment saying that I should just get laser hair removal, and I appreciate the intention behind that, but that is really expensive and very cost prohibitive to me, especially to have like over my entire body. That would take months and months, if not longer, and thousands of dollars that I don't have. So unfortunately, that's not really an option for me. And unfortunately, the longer I go without having any kind of laser hair removal or anything, like the more impossible it's going to be for me to have it, because once my hair turns gray, I'm not going to be able to have it done because your hair has to be dark for it to work. So eventually it's not even going to be an option for me. So anyway, like I said, I always appreciate when people suggest that, but that's not really going to work for me unless I suddenly come into like a whole lot of money really fast, which doesn't seem likely. So anyway, back to my updates. If you have been following my channel, then you know that I took Accutane for several months last year. It's been about 9 months since I've been off of it now, and I am going to be making a year off Accutane update eventually in June. But for now, I'll just say that I have not really had any recurrence of acne. I've had like a few little bumps here and there, but nothing major. And most of what I've had since being back on tea has been just like little ingrown hairs and stuff from shaving. So it's not really acne. It's just like a little bit of irritation that goes away after a couple of days usually. So being back on tea did not make my acne come back. So Accutane really worked for me. I'm very grateful for that. I'm very, very happy that I went on that. So that's as far as acne. And then just as far as like my skin texture, it has noticeably gotten a little bit thicker on my face. Like, I don't know, it just feels a little bit different, has a little bit different texture. It's not like rough, but it's just a little bit thicker feeling than it was previously. And as far as muscle growth and redistribution and all of that kind of stuff, as seems to always be the case with these updates, I can't really say too much about it because my workout and stuff like routine has been not super consistent. I've been working out at CrossFit and I've definitely noticed like some gains from that, and I'm really enjoying doing CrossFit. But in February, I went on vacation to North Carolina for a week, and then at the end of my trip got sick, and then was sick for like 2.5 weeks after that and was not able to work out at all. So I went almost the entire month of February without working out at all, and definitely lost a little bit of muscle from that. So there's not really a good way for me to like really say like what's from tea and what's from working out and like what's from like not working out for a while, and like there's just so many variables. The other thing that I can never seem to really pin down as far as being on tea or being off tea is emotional stuff, because I tend to have a lot of ups and downs anyway. Like I'll get to a point where I feel really balanced and I feel like everything's going well, and then suddenly something will come into my life that's like a lot of emotional stuff to deal with, or I just get overwhelmed with stuff, or I get really stressed, or like there's just like always something that happens that kind of like messes me up that has nothing whatsoever to do with tea. And that's always like that happens regardless of whether I'm on tea or not. So like being on tea or being off tea isn't really a factor in that. But I can't really say like, oh, when I was off tea, I had more moodiness and now I have less mood. Like I can't say that, and I can't say the opposite either, because it just always is kind of up and down. I think for the most part, I don't really have differences, like really noticeable differences being on tea or off tea. I know some people talk about feeling more moody when they're not on tea, or feeling like more angry when they're on tea, or feeling like they can't cry when they're on tea. And I really haven't noticed any of that. My moodiness doesn't really seem to have to do with tea. And I'm not a big crier anyway. I tear up a lot, like pretty commonly can tear up from being emotional from like watching something on a TV show, or like even a commercial, or just like something like really touching that I see online. I'll tear up pretty easily, but I don't usually cry, like as far as like actually crying, unless things are like really bad or whatever. So that's the case whether I'm on tea or not. So that really didn't change at all. The only thing that I will say as far as tea and mood is that when I first went back on tea during this 5.5 month stint, I went on a very low dose to start with. I think my first dose was like 18 milligrams or something. And I was trying to keep it as low as possible so that I could like make things happen as gradually and slowly as possible, and just kind of like try to stretch it out as long as I could. But after a while, I was still having a lot of mood stuff, which that wasn't from being on tea. I was already in like a depressive episode when I started tea. And I was like just dealing with a lot. So that hadn't changed. And then I saw somebody online talking about having, I think they might have actually had bipolar, which I don't have, but I have depression and dysthymia. And so I tend to have a lot of like mood cycling kind of stuff. And they were talking about that low dose tea actually exacerbated that more for them. And there were other people that agreed with that. And so I don't have like any like science to give you on this or anything, but based on that, I decided to try going up on my dose a little bit to see like whether that would affect anything. And I actually did start feeling quite a bit better pretty quickly after that. I still like, it didn't like cure all my problems or anything, but I didn't have that kind of like baseline depression feeling as much, and didn't have as much irritability and stuff like that. So that's not to say that being low dose is bad, but for people who have a tendency toward like mood problems, like mood disorders or like mood lability and stuff like that, it might be something to keep in mind that being at a low dose might not be the best option. So I think for me, that's the case. I think being at a low dose is not great for me. And I'm still at not a high dose. I'm still not at like even what's usually considered a full dose. But just being at a very low dose didn't work for me. I have blessedly not had a menstrual cycle, which is wonderful. It is one of my favorite things about being on tea, and that has been great. So that's awesome. And then I think finally, the only other thing that there is to talk about is the usual TMI stuff. So I'll put that here, and here's the timestamp to where you can like jump to if you don't want to see this part. But mostly what I've noticed is I have had an increase in libido, and I have had some growth in that area. Still not really a lot of growth, but it's noticeable to me, but it's still not a lot. I think it probably at this point would be noticeable to somebody else. Like they would notice that it was bigger or that it was like large, but I don't know that they would think that it was necessarily like unnatural as far as like if I were a cis female. So I don't know. But it definitely is like bigger and stuff, but it's not really too much like elongated yet. It's still kind of like just, I don't know, like more of an ovalish shape, but not like long. I don't know really how to describe it, but it definitely is more sensitive, and I definitely have had an increase in libido. So most of my changes have been fairly gradual but noticeable, and I'm glad about that. I want them to be gradual because I really want to stay on tea as long as I can. I really like being on tea. I feel better being on it. I know this sounds weird to a lot of people, but I enjoy the process of taking tea, and like, I don't know, it's just something about it, just it feels right to me. And I really like being like the feeling that I have being on tea, like just kind of the internal feeling and also the physical feelings that I have being on tea. I really like that a lot. And eventually I'm going to get to the point where I'm having effects from it that I really, really don't want. And I'm going to have to figure out what to do at that time. But after being on and off tea so many times for 3 years now, I feel like I've gotten a lot more comfortable with a lot of the changes that I have had. Since I've had more time now to kind of process them and kind of ease into them, especially with hair, which is really weird because like I really did not want any hair at all. And I still don't really want hair, but I don't know, the hair that I've gotten, I've kind of gotten used to it, and it doesn't really bother me that much. And some of it I actually kind of like a little bit, like the hair on my tummy. I did kind of trim that hair after I took that video because I didn't really like how like that one patch of hair was like a little bit longer. But like just having like a little bit of fuzz, I kind of like a little bit. So I don't know, it's kind of interesting, but I really don't think that's going to happen with kind of the extreme changes of hair that I have been trying to avoid. I really don't think I would get to the point where I like having a lot of like thick body hair. And where if I start losing my hair on my head, I don't think I would like that. And I don't know, I guess I'll just have to see when it comes to that. But how things are now, I feel good about, and I feel like I'm happy with the changes and kind of the rate of changes. It's still been really frustrating with my voice, trying to learn how to sing and trying to get comfortable with my range and trying to like learn how to sing high, especially. It's very difficult to do when everything is shifting constantly, and it's been very frustrating. But talking to some other trans singers about that has really helped me a lot. There's a great Facebook group for trans singers that has like really helped me kind of feel a little bit less alone in that regard. Yeah, so things are going well, and I don't have any plans at this point to stop taking tea, but I don't know. We'll have to just see how things go, as we always do. If I forgot to mention anything in this video, like if there were any topics that I completely just didn't cover at all, or if you have any questions about the things that I did talk about, leave them in the comments below, and I will be happy to answer them either in the comment or in a future video. And yeah, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more of my future content, which will include future tea updates, eventually an Accutane update, eventually another top surgery update, and lots of more videos that I have backlogged that I don't know at all when I'm going to get to, but hopefully eventually we'll get to some of them at least. And yeah, hit that notification bell so that you actually find out when I do post something, because YouTube doesn't always tell you. And yeah, I think that covers it. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.